Alright guys, back to business. I am refreshed, rejuvenated, regurgitated. Wait, what? No. No, we are back to random reviews, and we have a little bit of a theme week, I think, is in order here. Typically, I am interested in only 3 versions of any character at any one time. The original release, the masterpiece release, and the one that falls somewhere in between that's the best toy to just pick up and play with if I want to play with that character. So we're going to start off such a week looking at Generation 1 Prowl. Now, this one in particular is the Commemorative Edition version, so this is the Hasbro re-release, so keep in mind any little changes I don't notice from the original G1 toy. Yeah, that's probably for the reason. There's a few I know about, and probably a few I don't, but we'll be taking a look at it for what it is. As you can see, he is a Datsun, one of the old Nissan cars from the 80s, and this is going to be a little bit strange because I'm sure some American audiences do not really recognize this as a type of car you would use for police enforcement, but in Japan at the time, this is actually accurate, believe it or not. So it's not a bad looking vehicle. It is definitely old school in design, and of course it is, being from that era. But I always like the look of the vehicle. It's got that long front end that kind of reminds me of a Corvette, but it still has like more normal looking car proportion. Like, it's got the proportions of a Corvette, but it's got the stylings of a standard car. It's kind of strange that way. But I don't mind the look. He is decoed in white as well as black, and this is where telling paint and plastic apart was actually a little bit more difficult. There's a lot of paint going into it in order to get the black all the way through the vehicle, all the way around. But there's also a lot of white going on because of course, it's Generation 1. There is die cast. Everything up here in the front that will become the chest, well, aside from these pieces here, are going to be die cast, as well as most of the legs outside of the windshield portions that are translucent plastic. He does have quite a bit of heft to him as a result. Also, because he is G1, the rubber tires means he rolls exceptionally well. And part of that also comes from the diecast giving him some good weight to hold him to the ground and provide friction. A lot of toys these days don't roll too well because they're just too light. And they just don't have the right weight distribution to really get contact with whatever you roll them on, or attempt to roll them on in this case. Let's take a look at actual Deco, because this is the era of stickers, and plenty of them. You have the police badge there on the front, police spelled out there right there in the center, blue done up for the headlights, Autobot sigil, nice and bold on front. Kind of the robot in disguise thing, kind of out the window here, especially when the rub sign is just up here, and kind of pointless to kind of hide your sigil here when it's down there. There's his traditional police badge design. You can see it on the doors as well. Highway Patrol, Police. Highway Patrol, Police, with the taillights stickered on as well. And one more along the side. You also have the main difference between him and the other versions of this mold, well, at least the blue streak, the light bar up top, done up with chrome and translucent red, and looking quite good. So, not bad all the way around. Prowl, I think, is one of the ones that came probably the closest to matching his show model. There's not a whole lot of differences going on, and we'll see more of that in the robot mode. One strange thing about this, no real place to mount his weapons. That's pretty much a G1 staple of being able to attach weapons onto what would otherwise be a perfectly standard vehicle. But there aren't really any peg holes or slots or anything I can find to actually plug the weapons in, which is kind of unusual back then. But I digress. Let's get into robot mode. Let's see what else he does. First off, we open up the doors. So he does have an open door look to him, but it's all robot junk inside, so not a whole lot you're going to get out of doing that. I'm going to pull the legs out, rotate them up like so, then, come on. Once they're in place, you can split them. You're supposed to be able to split them in half. It's giving me, there we go. Give me a little bit of stubborn times. They split in half, and they lock in position that way. They can't fold back anymore. That's good design. That's good engineering thought. With that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and go to the torso. The arms do this weird thing where they peg into each other. So you had to unclip those and then rotate one arm out. And then this one kind of shimmies its way out. Let's do a little bit of part arranging in order to get that done. It's an interesting way of dealing with the arms in vehicle mode. And it does secure them pretty well, so good on them. We will disengage this piece, raise that up, rotate around, lock back in place, and then folding the whole thing down, head flips up as everything goes onto his back. We'll straighten up a few things here before we call it a completed robot mode. And now we raise him up, and we look at our G1 Prowl. Looking actually pretty nice. Like, G1 toys, you know, get a reputation for being stocky and blocky, and he manages to have some, you know, pretty lean sections to him and still come across as a pretty solid robot. And as I said, he doesn't do too bad of a job of actually looking like Prowl from the cartoon. We will take a close-up look at the head design here. It is very much Prowl. Of course it is. A little bit of chrome there on the forehead, just to make sure he has that appropriate look. It's stickered, but does make sure that his little fins get the attention they need. Silver face, but no paint on the eyes, which is a little bit annoying, but back then, it was something of a luxury to have paint apps that small, so it is what it is. It still looks like Prowl. That's all I really ask. This is one of those designs where it's very classic Autobot. The front end of the vehicle is the chest, the rear is the legs, etc., etc., and we even have door wings and everything. This is pretty much what I think of when I think of G1 Transformer. This is the go-to default style of design, and a lot of toys during the same era and even in the modern day still follow pretty much this same formula. It's a formula that still works pretty well. And even, like I said, in the animation model, they pretty much stuck to how this guy looks. So, obviously, something went right. And the proportions are okay. Like I said, he doesn't do too bad of a job of looking like a big solid bot and still having a few bit of slender parts to him. He's a little bit squat, and his arms are a little bit thin for the size of his, like, full-on body. Like, the waist and pelvis section, you can tell. Pretty fat. And I think that's just a limitation of how big the arms could be and still hide away inside the front of the vehicle. So, limitations of the times, certainly. But it doesn't look too bad. Well, if I go to the side, he starts getting a little weird as the head sits way far back from the center of his body. That's just something that... that's a thing of the engineering times, I guess. Hey, it ain't G1 Ironhide, so we're grading on a curve here. Now, he does have some accessories because, well, that's pretty much all you had as far as G1 goes. For starters, he does have this laser rifle, which was chrome in the original toys, and now it is just straight up black because cost cutting. You'd think the commemorative reissues would be a little bit more accurate, but I can also see making them just a little bit different so you don't confuse the two. So we're going to put that one in there, and I'm going to go ahead and attach these. These are his missile launchers. Again, the missiles are supposed to be chrome, and they're also supposed to fire off, but that's not really how it works these days. You just kind of lock into place and don't really want to be removed anymore. So they're just pretty much static cannons that no longer fire because these missiles are no longer considered safe for kids. Also, they kind of had two different ideas. If they could extend the missiles and actually modify the launchers to still work, that's what they did. In this case, they decided, no, that's not feasible because there'd be too much junk sticking out the back of them. We'd have to remold way too much and ruin the look of the launchers. So, yeah, no launching. What it means is it's hard to show Prowl without the missiles in place, without just, like, ripping these things out, and I really don't want to risk breaking anything on this toy. And the missiles don't look bad. I mean, it does definitely complete his look, and the way they kind of peg into the side of his head does let you hinge them up and down, so you can see a little bit more of his head. But it does hinder quite a few views of the design's details. Speaking of, there is more stickering to talk about. The pelvis got some nice yellow lines. There's some tech detail. This is the kind of detailing I kind of miss in Transformers because you just can't do this with paint. You know, it'd be really difficult as a tampograph. But I do like seeing just like mech detail on my Transformers like that. That's really cool. Also, he gets his badges up at the top on his shoulders. These are the unfortunate stickers on here because the shoulder and the bicep are so tight together that it tends to want to crumple the sticker up if you try to bend the elbow. You can see it there. That's not good. That's not good at all. That's, I believe, a bit of a design flaw that's been around since the original G1 toy. That's a disappointment, but hey, what can you do? We can look at articulation. That's what we can do, because as a G1 toy, it's a pretty simple thing. There is absolutely nothing in the main body. The articulation is strictly to the arms. So the arms are actually impressive for G1. You got that torso hinge from Transformation that can help, but you also have shoulder. Hang on, he's waist disengaged. All right, so you have shoulders that move outward. You also have a rotation, which means the shoulders have actual universal joints. You also have an elbow that bends to 90 degrees, as well as wrist rotation. So the arms actually have kind of a modern level of articulation outside of like bicep rotation, which isn't there. But everything else is very prickish because it is G1. This is back when the only trick they needed was transforming, because it was such a novelty to have a toy car and a toy robot at the same time. And this is still why I love Transformers, because you get so much out of a single purchase. And just for the sake of argument, since I know a lot of people complain about how small Transformers are these days, let me give you just a little bit of a demonstration. Here's our current RID Optimus Prime compared to what we used to get. And I think the prices were even comparable back then. Don't quote me on that. It's been a long time since I looked up what cost G1 toys had. They were all different too. They weren't standardized like they are now. But yeah, toys used to be quite a bit smaller for major characters. They didn't make them in multiple sizes either. So that, my friends, is Generation 1 Prowl. I think a pretty serviceable example for what a G1 toy is. Not too far off from the animation model, though that's more to the credit of the animators than the toy design. The transformation's nice. There's a couple novelties to it. I do like how the arms work in engineering-wise. And the look is still not bad. He doesn't come off as brickish as most G1 toys, at least as far as appearance goes. And he is nice enough to kind of make you feel like, like this is a toy that represents the character in the show. Not to mention, as I said, he's pretty much a standard style design for modern Transformers in general. But we can see how it did translate to modern designs next time, because Prowl got a lot of toys, so we have plenty more to look at.